We're back for Hal Miller, inductee number 2 for this year's class of the Cardinal Pride Hall of Fame. Hal has been a Cardinal his whole life. How do you feel about that, Hal?
I guess I just like Cardinals. Grew up in Alexandria and I was a Cardinal there. I did spend 4 years at St. Cloud State, where I was a Husky. Tried to play some football and found out I couldn't be a football player and a student. I did catch on with the baseball team and spent 3 years, 3 springs with the St. Cloud State baseball team.
When you look back on your career, which, by the way, you don't look old enough to have retired yet, what were some of the highlights for you?
You know, Doctor, when Mary Almond called and asked about, indicated that I needed highlights, and I needed 5 of them. And I started with a canary pad, and I had 2.5 pages of them. And now to narrow that down to just simply 5 of them was extremely difficult, but at the same time it was rewarding to think back about all the kids and all the experiences that I had when I was here as a Willmar Cardinal. Certainly 34 years teaching in the district, 24 in elementary, and the final 10 here at the high school. I came to the high school when it opened. And certainly those 34 years are a continual highlight. I think I worked with the finest bunch of staff, and certainly the most incredible administrators that you could put together and find anywhere. And so that clearly would be the number one highlight. I remember telling Superintendent Leadham the day that we retired, and I indicated to her something that I was proud of, and I said, you got the best I could give you every single day during those 34 years. Now, were some days better than others? Yeah, absolutely. But the best that I could give you on every day you got. And that's just what was expected. It was never written, but that's the way the administration was. That's what their expectations were. That's what mine were. And the staff that I worked with, that's what their expectations were. And so, you know, I think that certainly is the biggest highlight. I've been involved with the Minnesota State High School League for the past 25 years. I've been the site manager for the Class AA girls and the Class A boys for most of those years. In fact, I just completed my 50th state tournament this spring. And just being around the league and seeing what they do for young people has just been an incredible experience for me. Certainly, the coaching. I've been involved in tennis in the girls program for 28 seasons, and I believe 17 in the boys. And the experiences and the kids and the parents that you get to work with, they're just all highlights. We made some good runs at the state tournament, finishing third one year and getting there, I think, 9 times. Certainly in the basketball program, working with Mike Hansen and Shorty Schrader, and then finishing up the last 10 years with Brad Atchison, and working with him as his assistant has just been a wonderful time. As we like to say, we played for a state championship, and that whole season was what we labeled a magic carpet ride, and it really was.
How have you seen athletics change besides just the gender changes that have taken place since you started your career?
Well, I think I think I was probably maybe a little bit better girls coach than maybe I was a guys coach. I think girls, the young women that played were so incredibly coachable, and I think the strides were made by the fact that they were so coachable. If I look at tennis, we were able for many, many years to be competitive with the metropolitan area. because we could outwork kids in the summertime. The gap has widened now. There's a little more specialization in sport. We have a number of tennis players, both guys and girls, that play year-round. They get professional help. They have access to indoor courts. I think our program was, and that was because of a lot of good assistants, a lot of good kids and tennis families, that we could compete year in and year out with the very, very best. And I think we were very highly respected, not just for our playing ability, but I think for the way we conducted ourselves. I think that's because our kids were so very coachable. They wanted to get better. They had goals to get to the state tournament. Once they went there and saw it, they wanted to come back to it. So I would say probably the area of coachability had something to do with it.
When you first started coaching, did you dream that you would do it that long?
No, I don't know that that I thought that I would go that long. I think each year I found more and more things to enjoy, and you get caught up with building a program. The very first team that I coached was really coached by Judy Augustin, an inductee into the Cardinal Pride Hall of Fame. And she got out of tennis, and I inherited her team, and they almost took me to the state tournament. I went to the state tournament that first year, and I got caught up in the tournament, not just the pomp of it, but just the whole atmosphere of it, and watching how good the kids were. And I talked to a lot of coaches, and they found out that we needed to have a program for young kids, and so we started playing it in Fayette over at Jefferson School. We had 2 courts across the street at Miller Park, and I kind of started a little after school program. Then we got some rackets, and we started playing it in Fayette, and we'd rotate kids through, and there were some young kids that were pretty good at it. And that's kind of where the excitement started, was seeing the young kids and how interested they were in the game. And we were teaching the game, we were teaching the etiquette of the game, we were teaching how to compete. And those were the first kids, those 5th and 6th graders that were at Jefferson, were the first group of kids that took us into the state tournament. And we went 5 or 6 straight years with kids out of that beginning program. And then it caught on and mushroomed, and we got more tennis families, and that's really been the backbone of the program, were tennis families. Mom and dad and the kids all played tennis. And then the years just kind of flew by, and it was enjoyable. The relationships, not just with the kids and the parents, but other coaches were close throughout the conference, throughout the section. And I think it's easy once the program has some respect. I mean, we tried to, in the beginning, to be as good as Litchfield, and then as good as St. Cloud Apollo and St. Cloud Tech, and then we wanted to venture into the metro area and start playing some of the city schools, and with that, just kind of mushroomed the respect and the admiration that other people had for our kids in our program.
Now, Hal, you weren't at all competitive, were you?
I'm pretty competitive. My wife won't play cards with me, and I can say, well, then let's not keep score. If we're going to keep score cards, then we should play to win. I think that tempered when you're young, it's all about that. But I think pretty soon you realize that that it's about the kids and what kind of experience they have. I'll never forget when Bob Glazeman became the AD, and we all met together, and some of the advice that he shared was that we needed to, as coaches, make sure that our student athletes and our parents knew that there were things that you were going to learn in whatever sport you coached, and that includes band and choir, debate, a one-act play, that there are things that you're going to learn with your involvement there that you can't learn with necessarily within the framework of a school building. that there were other things that you were going to learn, and if they weren't learning those things in your sport, then we should just be a club sport. But we're not, because of those educational benefits. And the nice thing is that whether you were a starter playing all the time in your sport, whether you were a reserve that came in, or whether you were a team player, you got the benefits from being there, being in practice, and that was just so important to remind people. And I think that's what kind of pushed us to that degree, where we understood that the experiences were bigger than the actual matches. But yeah, we were pretty competitive. We set goals for ourselves about trying to compete with different programs, and certainly you always wanted to win a conference title, and you wanted to win region titles to get to the state tournament.
And now coming on from north to south, Dewey Bach is escorting our next inductee. As many of you well know, is Hal Miller. Hal was a three-sport winner at Alexandria High School, lettering in football, basketball, and baseball. Even though he grew up in Alexandria, he gave the best he had to Willmar. So at least he had the right Cardinals. But before coming to Willmar, he was recruited to play football at St. Cloud State. After playing there for one season, he managed the baseball team for the next 3 years. Then Hal started his teaching career in Willmar Elementary School in 1970. In 1971, he became an assistant football coach at Ridgewater. In 1978, Hal became the boys' varsity baseball coach and girls' varsity tennis coach. He coached the tennis team for 28 years and picked up the boys' varsity tennis team also. Hal coached boys and girls basketball too. In the summer, he also coached various teams. Coach Miller thinks that during the 34 years he lived in Willmar, he led 100 different teams. While coaching the girls' tennis program, Hal took the tennis team to the state tournament 8 times, finishing third in 1981. He led the boys' tennis team to the conference championship and was conference runner-up 3 times. Coach Miller also took the boys and girls basketball teams to the state tournament 3 times each. The highlights as the championship game in 2004 in the girls' state championship. Hal is the kind of person everyone seems to know, and most of us have heard, as he's announced football and basketball games over the years and has been on color commentary on KWLM. Our community is proud to have Coach Miller recognized for his contribution to Willmar Athletics and see him inducted into the Cardinal Pride Hall of Fame. Hal Miller!